the jealous relish the moment their opponent wins a revel 6 feet under. What a bummer, it's no wonder the waste could have been a contender. No maggots watching his face.
Hey, we're here with mcchris. There's our intro.
That works. That works for me, man.
Welcome to our podcast. I could have sworn we had you on before, but I in my memory, we're all plays 50 on 50.
I've done a lot of podcasts. I don't know what I've done in the past. A lot of my past is out of reach mentally.
Yeah, me too. I was thinking about that earlier. I was thinking about how I can't remember things a lot, and it's probably for the better. I was on stage at one of your shows in recent history, within the last 5 or 6 years. Maybe it was before the pandemic, but you did you're like, I'm recording this for the podcast, and I don't know if it ever came up, but I was on stage and we talked about gijoe, which is typically what we do when we see each
Hold
other.
on 1 second, guys. I hear some pounding. I just want to check on it real quick.
All right.
Sure.
The pounding.
Sure.
My new album just arrived. So
really?
bringing it up the steps with a dolly. So we're like, what the hell's going on? Are we being attacked? You guys go ahead and resume and see if you can edit this together.
And we're here with mcchris.
Yeah, we're here with MC. This is newsworthy. He just got his album. I feel like we're part of something special.
King and Black has arrived.
You were before I got on the podcast, but yeah, my new album, King and Black, just arrived. It just came up the steps. Black and white vinyl. So I'm very, very excited. It's such a long process to get an album done, and the moment where you get to kind of take it out of the box and hold it in your hands is really this incredible moment, because in January I was just kind of like depressed and so sad that this album hadn't come out yet, and it had been years, and I was just like, why isn't this happening? And then I was looking at my numbers on Spotify, and I saw that they were going down, and I was doing some research about it, and I was like, you need to put out new music. And I was like, yeah, that's usually what people do. They put out new music to draw attention to their entire catalog and them as an artist. If you don't do that, this is why people do it. People are like, oh, I want to express myself. It's like, no, you really want to just remind people that you exist. And the best way to do that is with a new album, because you have this whole PR push that you do. But I have been trying for 8 years to make this album. I made another album while I was trying to make it because it wasn't happening fast enough. And COVID happened. I had a divorce, all this drama. I became a full-time single dad. All this drama happened, and it really slowed me down. And then everything settled. And then there was no drama, and there was nothing bad happening. And I was that too created like a whole new form of depression, where it was just like my adrenaline was gone. The adrenaline of that fight or flight feeling you have when
The stress,
the shit hits the fan.
deadline thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like if that's all done and over with, then you're just kind of sitting there being like, ugh. And I was sober too, so I had nothing to run to except for video games and Stephen King books, and so I was just it felt like I was wading in water, I was just kind of floating there. Nothing was happening. And then I just have this epiphany in the middle of January where it's like, I need to finish this thing. And I decided I wasn't going to shave until I finished the record.
Oh, it's like a Conan O'Brien kind of.
And a giant beard happened.
Wow.
And I really hated the beard, although it was great for my skin. My skin loved it because I wasn't shaving my face every day.
Yeah.
But the beard really got me going, and it got the album done. And any problem I had, I was like, okay, how do we solve this problem? I became really proactive and just active about how do I solve the problems? How do I get this done? And I just kept on making to-do lists and kept on saying this needs work and this needs work. And I just keep on rewriting things and keep on asking for new beats if I didn't like the beats. And I did the cover multiple times. Each song that's on this album is version 3 or version 4. It's I made every song. I made this album multiple times.
So you made the whole song? and then you had to
Yeah,
do it.
I made the whole thing, and I just felt like, oh, this sucks, and I don't like it, and I can't. I had such high standards, I couldn't put it out, and and so finally, I just kept on working at it and working at it and going over it, and if something wasn't right, if a line in a song wasn't right, I'd highlight it in red, and I would just rewrite it, and I kept on rewriting the lyrics, doing stuff that had been kind of set in stone for years. I just got my motto is keep it simple. Like sometimes I'd be using too many words or trying to sound smart or trying to be impressive, and then towards the end of the process, I was like, how do we communicate this idea in the simplest way possible, in the fewest words possible?
But
And
you
that really
rap
helped a
fast.
lot.
You
Yeah, I
rap
mean,
fast, so you are getting a lot of stuff in there.
I didn't want to rap fast. I wanted to be understandable, because I felt like a
Mm,
lot of fast rap is clever and impressive, but it's always looked like juggling to me. Like it's a skill that you
mm,
have, but there's really no heart to it. Because
mm.
it's really about what you're saying, the idea you're communicating that really is what's connecting you with the listener. And so I'm like, how do I connect with them in the best way possible and stop grandstanding and stop trying to seem impressive or stop trying to be something I'm not? How do we communicate these ideas in simpler ways? And I found that if I use simpler language, it would always make it better. It would always, if I got rid of that 10-cent word, because since I've
Yeah.
always loved using words that rappers don't use, I always saw myself as like, just being well read and college educated, and I wanted to just be nerdy,
Right.
and like in the song "Geek," I say they dissipate the pungent odor of a power holder is the first line of that song, but dissipate and pungent aren't really words that get used in rap songs. Like I wanted to use these 10-cent words, and with this album, I'm just kind of like, there are a lot of 10-cent words in it, but towards the 11th hour, I was like, let's get those out of here. I know I'm talking a lot, but there's just this long process of,
No,
No,
this is
man.
of how
great.
do I, how do I like how do I get this album out the door in time for tour? And
Well,
so
also,
much of,
yeah, you said like that's like kind of around the time. Well, it's just you were talking about your motivation and your timeline and stuff. To me, it looks like you have never slowed down, even like in the pandemic, and like we've been doing shows together for years and everything, and like you always come back. But like I think it was like it must have been around January. You were like, I got to come. I'm coming back out like in July. Let's set up a show. Like so, you kind of did you put the tour ahead of as another sort of like thing for your deadline to like get the record done?
well, the tour I start booking, and I was a little late this year, but I start booking it about a month after I get home in
Mm.
August. So
Oh,
I
wow.
start working on the tour in September.
Yeah.
And I think I contact you usually in October.
Yeah, you're
And
probably
then
right about that. Yeah.
I try to get a hold from all the venues. And there are people that have beat me to it at that point because there's people that are booking shows a year in advance. But
I know, man.
I will be there like 8 months ahead of my show, and it'll be like, "Okay, we're giving you fourth hold," which means that 3 other bands have asked for that day.
Huh.
And then that's another thing where you just keep on, you don't get psyched out. You just say, okay, if I'm hitting a wall here and I don't have a show, then how do I reroute myself? How do I find another venue? What do I do? But I was used to touring every year, but I never thought, the album will come out when it comes out, is what I thought. But I think that I was getting too bogged down in feelings of midlife pointlessness or just uselessness. Like, when you're young, you feel like, oh, I have so much to say and everyone's got to hear me because I'm something new. And when you get to middle age, you're like, well, they've heard what I've had to say. How do I do this in a way that's not embarrassing, in a
Mm.
way that is meaningful and still excites me? And I just was coming up with nothing. I just felt like, oh, this is embarrassing. And being an old rapper is lame. Um, and I'd see other bands doing it. I'm always like Googling Wu Tang's age. Like how old is Method Man? And it'll say he's 54, and I'll be like, okay, I've got 4 years left. Um, but then there came a point where I was like, nobody does what I do, There are a lot of people that write nerdy raps, but I mean, I feel confident in saying that there's only one mcchris. And it's a
Oh, hell yeah.
very particular way of writing, and the stage show is very different from other performers because there's a lot of comedy in it. And so I just kind of said, well, there's only one person who does what I do, and really it kind of broke it down into smaller components. Like, how do we just meet our own standards and please ourselves with each song? If I can get each song to sound good and each skit to sound good, and finally improve the art, if I just take all the little pieces and try to just sign off on everything, that made me think a lot. I played fewer head games that way. If I got into the
Yeah.
minutia of things. Sometimes, because I screenwrite too, like I'll write scripts and I'll get so into the head games I just quit almost every time. I don't finish things. I write like I write like they call it a vomit draft. I'll write a vomit draft and I'll feel like it's pretty good, and then it's time to write a second draft, and oh, it's time to tour or it's time to do my real job. And so I'll play so many head games about like how I'm white or I'm old or nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Um, and I don't
Sort of
get bogged down in the
imposter
minutia of
syndrome type stuff, and yeah.
yeah. I don't get bogged down in the minutia of like I just got to write a couple pages every day. Something small. If you can accomplish something small, then eventually it becomes something big. If you just start getting some momentum going and you get a routine going.
Well, Durson's
And
writing a book right now.
I'm trying.
Durson's writing a book right now, actually. You're talking about all the things that are exactly our lives. Like, you know what I do, but like Matt's a writer. He's been a writer. We've been friends our whole lives. And he's always been writing screenplays and stuff. And he's working on a book now. And yeah, I mean, it's all that stuff, man.
there's
Yeah,
so
it's
many
tough,
voices telling you to like, what are you doing this for? What makes you think that you should be published or your script should be bought? Why are you so special? And you almost feel there's a certain point, at least with me creatively, where you start to feel psychotic or just like, am I a crazy person that I want these things? Is it wrong for me to want these things? And the trick these days is to snap out of that thinking and just like do some work and then feel the adrenaline and the endorphins that come from just like finishing something small. And doing that on a regular basis is really healing. It can take you out of doldrums. The more head games you play, the worse you feel. The more you hunker down and do something small, like write a couple of pages or finish a song, or for in my case, I'll like say, I'll just finish a verse today and feel good about a verse, and then I'll walk away from it. And the more I did that, before you know it, everything was done. And it takes a long time to go through. Once you're done, you're not done because you have to go through the notes process with the producers. You have to go through the art approval process with the printers. And all that takes a lot of time. I'm really impressed that these boxes are outside my apartment right now because tour starts on Friday, and I really wanted to be able to like hand the record to people at my shows this tour.
Yeah.
And it's such a long process, but I think this process has been a little bit more meaningful than usual because I had to get over so much to get to the creative part and to get to the finishing part. There is so much like I was kind of like taking an assessment of my life, and I was
Mm.
really depressed about how it hadn't gone the way that I wanted it to go. And that really kind of froze me and paralyzed me. But once I got past that, it was like a great feeling of we got through that really maybe one of the hardest parts of my life. Because I mean, even when I was going through my father's death or my, my marriage falling apart, I was still putting out an album all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still being creative.
Hitting the road,
And,
still doing
you
stuff.
know, I was consistent. But I think it's safe to say it was a midlife crisis. Getting through that really feels like an accomplishment this round.
And
That
getting
I was able
sober
to
and
yeah,
staying
and to
sober
do it
for like
sober
a
was like
while. Yeah.
a whole new challenge. Because the nice thing about being high was that it was, and I was only smoking pot, but I smoked pot every day, all day for a really long time, like 25 years at least. And that really warps your brain. You have to reprogram yourself. You have to like figure out how to put one foot in front of the other and how to enjoy things again, how to enjoy writing again, how to enjoy movies again, and like everything. Cause, you had to like smoke before everything in order to make even a meal. I remember I had this one
I
floor
identify with
manager
this
who
for sure.
he couldn't taste food if he didn't drink Diet Coke because it becomes such a part of his
Oh wow.
routine. And I was the same way with hot sauce. I like had to have hot sauce on everything or I couldn't taste it. And it was that way with drugs too. It's kind of like I had to be high in order to experience anything. And I think Ben Stiller plays a character in Half Baked where he's like, "Have you ever, done this but on weed?"
Oh
And or
yeah.
maybe it was Jon Stewart. I think maybe it was Jon Stewart.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was like every experience had to be coupled with pot. And it was really difficult to like, and I had written forever, mcchris forever sober, and then fell off the wagon. And I came when I moved to LA, I was like, oh, weed's everywhere and it's delivered and this is such a big deal and it's so cool, you could order it on your phone. And I was so used to like doing passwords, and there was subterfuge involved with getting drugs. And
Yeah. It's almost
but
less
yeah,
fun because it's so easily accessible now. You're like, I don't even want to
yeah, I
smoke
was
anymore. It's
excited
too
about this
easy.
new I felt like I'd moved to weed world, and I felt like, why would I be sober now? It's everywhere, and it's good and it's really great. In California, like there's this whole idea about California stoners and beach bums and stuff like that. And I really like to when in Rome. But yeah, being sober was a difficult challenge. But it went back to it didn't change my ability to be creative. If anything, I lost a little bit of the motivation. I think weed really was a motivator for me.
Mm,
Do some bong hits, write a song, get high,
right.
write a song. It became part of my process. To sit down and write without anything fun happening beforehand was a real chore. But then once you write something down, and you know this as a writer, once you write something down, immediately you want to edit it and fix it, and there's problems to solve, and there's a to-do list. If you just do anything, you could write something horrible, and it's always a good idea to write something horrible because immediately you're like, I have work to do now. I know what I have to do. You don't need any
Yeah.
impetus or anything like that to get you going.
I remember sort of feeling that way. Like when I first got sober, I was like, well, how could I be playing with my band or like writing or drawing or anything? I was like, I'm so used to doing all this stuff stoned or whatever. Like I was like, I don't think I'll be able to get that creative juice back. But then it didn't take that long, but it took me a little while to get to the point where I was like, oh no, actually I could like be a pretty good writer if I actually am like clear headed about this. And like I use the sober as an advantage rather than thinking like, oh, there's no way I can do this ever again because like, I'm not stoned and can't come up with some crazy idea.
Yeah, there's like a newfound efficiency that happens. You don't come up with that crazy idea that you might come up with while you're high, but you know, I've been involved with like crazy ideas, whether it be at Adult Swim or whatever, and I feel like the classic things, the classic ways of connecting with people, either through humor or through just reporting on existence, like you don't have to make things weird for no reason. You know, things you can connect with people without being weird. I mean, there is a place for weirdness, and I feel like it's a commentary on how silly life is and how weird life is and existence is. But I found that there's a lot of efficiency there, and there's ways to be funny, and there's ways to connect with fans in ways that you did before. But you're just sober, and you just hope that people still accept you, and I think that they have. And as a performer, it's a whole different world because I'm remembering my lyrics. I'm out
Yeah.
on the floor at my merch table, like talking to fans where I would normally be in my car
Hmm.
hiding, getting as high as I could. And towards the end of me bottoming out, I wasn't going in for mic checks. I was bringing my merch in after doors. Like I just did not want to go in the venue. I was so tired.
Yeah. It's
Now I'm
exhausting.
like raring to go. You see how I am. I show up right on time. I'm ready to get my bins in there and set my table up and do my mic check. And
It's
um
very efficient. And I've
Yeah.
seen all the versions because we've been doing shows together for a long time, and like I I liked that mcchris, but I like this one better. Like it's just I know I know we can hang out and have a good time and have a good show, and the fans all have a good show. And I still, after seeing you as many times as I've seen you, I sometimes say like this is a funny thing to say, but like sometimes I think like I would be like I would be one of those ticket buyers going to your show anyways. I just sometimes I go, oh, my ticket price is just a little bit higher, and I get to see you do this. And I've always been impressed with how you can remember all of these lyrics. I mean, I know it's yours and everything, but you always spit like hot fire, man. It's always impressive every single time, no matter when it has been. I'm always like, how does he know all the? Because I try to sing along, and I'm like, oh wait, I forget this part.
Well, the trick is for me is that I've been doing it so long is to not think about what's going on while I'm doing
Mm,
it. Sometimes I will get distracted by things, but I have come up with this new thing that audiobooks kind of taught me, and that's like if I start spacing out, which I will do during a song, because it's all muscle memory, is I will have the lyrics just I'll pretend that they're like on a screen and they're just like printed center of the screen, and I'm just imagining the lyrics and I'm
that's awesome.
seeing the word and I'm seeing the words and I'll see it for that split second um before I say them. And I have like two new songs that I've been working on this week that I'm going to be trying to perform live. One of them's from the new album and one of them's from an old album, and it's really hard learning new songs, but it's just a lot of repetition and doing it over and over and over again, and it's still not perfect, but we're gonna get as close as we can, and then those will be our mic check songs, and so we have a way to kinda rehearse them every day, and, you know, the trick is these days is to figure out what to play because there are so many songs and the set goes by so fast, and I
Mm.
can't please everybody, I really want to, but there's gonna be somebody who's like, "Oh, he didn't play this or he didn't play that," and that bums me out. That's why last tour was so much fun. It was a 2-hour set where I did nothing but audience requests, and
Wow.
and that was to celebrate 20 years on the road. And I don't know when I'll do that again. But this year I'm going to try to
Did
pace myself,
anybody
be on stage on a little bit shorter amount of time
did anybody throw you a curveball or anything that you're like, oh, I don't know that
every
one or
night.
anything?
Every night.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Cool.
people said songs that I definitely did not know, hadn't performed in decades. Sometimes I would amazingly remember things. Sometimes I was definitely, I made a bit out of bringing up my lyrics on a laptop on stage,
Oh,
putting my back to the audience and just karaokeing my way through it because I figure I'm not inhuman. There's a limit to I can't know every song I've done because there's like 50 songs at least. Um, but there were some curveballs, and I would make bits out of things that were really difficult. And there are some songs I refused to do. Somebody requested "Rinkin' Around with the Four I'm Greasy Guy," which is Dexter Jetster from Attack of the Clones. I have a song about him, and I couldn't even say the words. I was reading the lyrics. I couldn't even say it because it's such a fast song. And there's so much information. When the beginning of my career, I used fewer words. As time went on, you can tell I want to write books or screenplays or something because there's just way too many words. There's not even my mouth can't get them out. I don't know how I recorded them, and then I get asked to perform them live, and I'm just like, that's impossible. That's impossible. And there's no way I could do that. I mean, I could figure it out if I practiced for a really long time, but um, that song in particular was just like, God damn it, there's no way that I could do this live. It's just way too much information.
Well, and this is 25 years, this tour, right? Like, or it's
This
25
is
years of
25
empty.
years since the premiere of Adult Swim.
Mm.
Not long after Adult Swim premiered, Sealab had an episode where the characters went to an mcchris concert, and they used my
wow.
song in the episode. we put a website up in the credits, and that was how everybody who was watching that episode found me, and a whole little fan cult happened right away on a message board. From 2001 to 2004, it was just me talking to fans on a message board. There was no way for them to see me live. But in those 4 years, I built a following that was so fervent that by the time I started touring in 2005, it was crazy. It was like these were small venues, but I felt like a Beatle. Because they were packed and all the shows sold out, and I had to hide, and there was no place for me to hide, and it was really crazy in the beginning. But I was on TV. TV will have that effect on people.
Well, it was a huge thing. Yeah, you've been here for like this whole thing, and this sort of how like nerd culture has become like a huge thing now, and you were kind of there for the whole wave. I feel like 25 years.
Yeah, it was really weird. I definitely saw. I didn't know what kind of music I made when I was in college. I would never have called my music nerdcore or think of it as nerdy. Although I was always making Star Wars references, always trying to sound smart, using 10-cent words. But my goal was just to like almost to have an Andy Warhol like approach to hip hop, where I said my name too much. Like my name would be in all the song titles. When I first started making music at NYU on an 8-track, and I wanted to rap over, classic rock. That was my goal, is to just say my name a lot and rap over classic rock, and kind of like that's kind of what I was going for. It was kind of like a postmodern take on hip hop. And then I made that first album with some guys who were on a punk label that my roommates were on the same label with. They were called Attention Deficit. And they had mixed Aphex Twin with some Green Day. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And then we started to have like a really professional sound. We were using Pro Tools. We had mics. And it sounded really good. People's like eyes would kind of like widen when they listened to it, because it was like, this doesn't suck. Where you kind of imagine that all rap at that time kind of sucked. At least homemade stuff. And then once I made that first album, people were like, we love this, and this is who we are, and this represents us. And I was like, huh? And then I just paid attention to who was saying that. And that's when I realized that, oh, wow, they're all nerds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were animation fans, they liked cartoons. But once I knew that they were nerds, and that second album I made, Knowing Is Half the Hassle, I had a song called Geek, which was about my brother, or at least a lot of the details were mined from his nerdy life with his friends. But then once I knew who to rap for, I got a sense of like my purpose and my calling and like what I was here to do. And but yeah, I saw little things happen. Like all of a sudden, Weird Al, who was a really nerdy guy, had always been nerdy. He had oh God, I always forget what this is called. What does he play? An accordion.
The accordion.
But he was a nerdy guy. He loved polka. He played accordion. He looked like a nerd. But after I came on the scene, he did a song about being white and nerdy.
Yeah,
and it was like it was a white nerdy. It was like a nerdy rap song about being white and a nerd. And then I saw one day in Disney World, I saw Mickey had like glasses with tape on the middle of the glasses. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And I couldn't tell. And I'm in the center of my own universe, so I don't know like how this is, if I am just a evidence of a greater thing that's happening. And I kind of, I've always likened it to Lord of the Rings and Spider-Man, where like these mass marketed entertainment behemoths that used to be kind of private things for nerds. Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, reading Spider-Man comics. This is not something that a football player would ever be caught doing. But a football player would go see Spider-Man. A football player would go see Lord of the Rings when those movies came out. They may not know what the the story is or what's going on, but like everybody went and saw those things. It wasn't a nerdy thing anymore. It was like after the 2000s or Y2K, everyone kind of realized, oh wow, nerds are into a lot of cool shit. I mean, X-Men, people were getting into X-Men and,
Yeah.
but they're
X-Men,
kind of
Spider-Man,
discovering that,
Blade,
yeah,
those
that our
movies,
universe,
everybody would
the
watch
stuff
them.
that we loved, once Kevin Feige started making Marvel movies, he kind of was bringing the nerd world to everybody, and everybody was like, "This is awesome." So, but I mean, the Weird Al thing was weird. Seeing Mickey with the glasses was weird because I had never seen that before, and I just didn't know if it had anything to do with me or not. There were articles in really big publications like New York Times and Wall Street Journal and stuff about me being a nerd and rapping, and how
Mhm.
and Time Magazine and Newsweek, when people read these things, were writing articles and mentioning me. I didn't really I just was kind of like, this can't possibly be me, but it's very coincidental that this is all happening while I'm happening. And
Right.
then, obviously conventions started in the 70s. They were handing out flyers for Star Wars in the late 70s at cons, and nobody knew what it was. Um, but then,
And you started performing at a lot of conventions, not just like being on tour, right? Like,
yeah, and I had never been to them
remember seeing that.
before. And
Mm.
that was another thing where you're just like, oh, wow, there's a lot of nerds.
Yeah.
And I never knew that because I mean, if you were a real nerd, you would have just been hiding in your bedroom every day, or you'd be with your friends playing D&D. You'd be in a basement. You'd be in a garage. You'd be in your bedroom. You wouldn't be going somewhere. Maybe the comic book store. It's not like how it is now, where if you go to like a board game store, they'll have 20 tables in the back filled with people all meeting
Yeah,
up to socialize and play a board
play
game or a
Magic
D&D or
and
Magic the Gathering
whatever.
or whatever it is.
Magic. Yeah.
But I mean, that wasn't common when I was, 25 years ago. But when I saw the conventions, that really was a mind blower too, where I was just like, wow, there's this whole world. I always had like a real private experience in my life. I never, I remember playing Halo and being like, I'm the only one that understands this game. Or listening to
Yeah.
Green Day being like, I'm the only one that gets this. Like, I'm cool for liking
Yeah.
this. It's kind of like this feeling I have these days where it's like it's something I haven't learned until recently, which is if you think a girl is pretty, you're not the first one who's ever thought that about that girl. That girl gets that every day, multiple times a day. You come up to her and you're like, I think you're beautiful. You think that you're saying something new that she's never heard before. And
Yeah, the first
it's kind
person
of the
to
same
say.
thing where
Yeah.
you're reading The Hobbit and you're like, only I know about how great this is. This is my little secret thing. Or you're reading a comic book and you feel that way.
I very
And
much feel that way about Adult Swim because like me and my college buddies watched, Aqua Teen and Sealab and stuff. And even though it was on cable and everybody had it, I really felt it like a punk rock protective thing about like, I'm the only one that understands how funny this is because it's underground and kind of weird. And why is this guy like not have a shirt on? And why is that guy
yeah,
like,
it was Sunday night. It was Sunday
yeah,
night in the middle of the night. Who like makes like that their target? I mean, normally the
not a lot
target
of us.
you're gonna watch Roseanne or the Cosby Show or
Play.
something, and
It's
that show comes on at 8 o'clock. It doesn't come on at midnight on Sunday. You know, um, and I think a lot of people, and that's a big reason why, and when I toured for the first time, and I would go and I'd party with fans and stuff at their houses and their dorm rooms and their apartments and stuff, and they'd have Master Shake painted on the wall and stuff. I'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't believe that people knew, about the shows. I mean, the internet was just gaining steam, but it wasn't. It wasn't until Futurama and Family Guy that Adult Swim became popular. So in the
right.
beginning, everybody that watched for those first couple of years, let's say those first 3 years, 2001 to 2004, before Futurama and Family Guy showed up, that really was like I mean, you were in on something that was not popular. it was small. It was like Space Ghost small. And but yeah, and that was a wonderful feeling. But once as time went on, then it was like it's not weird to be nerdy. It's not a
Right.
strange thing. It's like everybody's nerdy. Star Wars definitely is like, when I wrote that song about Boba Fett, I was like, I'm the only one who knows who this character is. You go to a
Yeah, who
convention,
is
there's
this
like
guy?
30 Boba Fetts. And
Yeah.
obviously they made a whole TV show out of Boba Fett. They made Attack of the Clones where everybody's a Boba Fett. They made a cartoon, Clone Wars. Everybody's a Boba Fett. Like every character is literally everybody's Jango Fett. They're all talking to each other. It's just a bunch of Jangos. I mean, they couldn't have mass produced this one character more. But when I wrote that song, there was only one of them, and he had 5 minutes of screen time,
Yeah.
and it wasn't something that anyone. Thankfully, nobody thought to write a song about it. And I had that action figure as a kid, and I just knew that this was the coolest action figure I had because there were so many tiny little details on him that just made him stand out. Almost like, we love G.I. Joe, like Destro. He had the rockets on his wrist. He had the briefcase
No, yeah.
with some stuff in it.
Yeah.
Destro had some details to him. And that's another reason why I liked Firefly so much because his backpack was so cool. And those tiny little details meant so much to me. And I think the tiny little details on that action figure is one of the reasons why I was like, this guy is the best of anything any icon that I had growing up, any villain or hero. And but that was a private discovery.
Yeah, you threw some attention to IG-88 too.
Yeah, I mean, well, then it became like a joke, and it's a bit that I love bits, and I love, you know, the idea that like my manager says, okay, you made it, you have a hit, now let's reproduce that hit.
Yeah,
We
who
need
else we
more
got?
bounty hunters with vehicles. And I wrote a song for every bounty hunter, and they all have different vehicles, and they're all good songs, and that was it's a joke, but I also love taking a joke seriously and trying to build something new that's cool, But yeah, it was weird to see nerdy like that private nerd experience become like this go from being alone in a room to reading comic books to being in a convention hall surrounded by thousands of people who are into the same thing. There's a little sadness attached to that because it's like you're losing that private experience. But there's also that kind of that positive feeling you have that like that I'm not so weird. And I think that
Yeah,
might be a big theme of my music and my experience touring and releasing albums is that a lot of people that listen to my music realize that they weren't so weird. And that music was like a gateway for them to feel better about themselves, to celebrate what they were into, to find people like them, to like love their lives, even if it wasn't a traditional, conventional cookie cutter thing that they might have been programmed to have. They weren't a jock. They weren't they weren't a homecoming queen. They might have been ridiculed and bullied, but that was a mistake. There was no reason for them to not think that they were awesome. And I think that at that time, everybody needed to hear that.
definitely. I mean,
You're right.
that's like kind of like how like like Matt and I like we went to high school together and like his neighbor across the street, John, who does the podcast with us too, he's a comic book colorist and letterer. And like that's the way you just described that and how we've been doing like this podcast for such a long time and going to conventions and being panelists or whatever, like that the reason that we've been friends like our whole lives is exactly feeling that way. Like we weren't the football player guys. We were the guys that were into Transformers and G.I. Joe. And then it's like, oh, we can look at all these amazing people at these like, and then a side effect to that was that I got into all this nerdy music and stuff like that. But we'd been Weird Al fans our whole lives and listened to Dr. Demento and stuff like that. We're just into the weird stuff that was uniquely ours. But you're right, it's great that we get to share that with a lot of people, and it does connect people a lot. and that like your fans.
It was great that you got to listen to Dr. Demento on the radio. You got to seek out things that were hard to find. I think that was part of the allure of mcchris too, is that it was hard to find. You had to seek it out, and you weren't getting. You had to like send an email to something to have a CD show up at your house. It wasn't like going to the record store to buy something. You had to seek it out. But so I thought that, and that same goes for Adult Swim. It was like you had to figure out when it was on, and once you found it, then you became a religious devotee
Yeah,
to watching the block, and then you not only love the shows, but you love the packaging, the commercials, like everything about it. Everyone throws around the word curate a lot these days, but I mean, it was a totally curated thing. Where almost 6 hours or 4 hours of entertainment that was specifically created, to be weird and different and strange. And seeking out me, seeking out Dr. Demento, seeking out Adult Swim. It was really awesome before everyone figured it out. That it was there's no greater thing, than to have your like little secret discovery, you know.
Right. Right. Now everything is there. Just to, whatever you want, you can just find
just
it.
stream it and
Probably.
everything.
Now
Yeah.
now it's like we're beyond jumping the shark, I think, Now you have to like stay off the internet so a movie doesn't get ruined, or now a
Right.
trailer shows up days before it would premiere in the theater. I mean, you guys know that we wouldn't know what trailers would show up before a movie, and then Ghostbusters trailer would show up and you'd be like, oh my god, this is the most amazing thing I've ever. You'd have no idea. You'd really get blindsided by content. Now it's like content is like meted out to you in tiny little bits. You know about things a year ahead of time. I remember being on Ain't It Cool News and reading Phantom Menace like details. Like, oh, we figure out this planet. We think the story's this, and you just try to ruin things for yourself constantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
But that
Like,
was more fun to do that.
we became like, almost like an ant colony where that like peeling away a roadkill, like where we would all just kind of come up to something, pull it all away, and in the process, eviscerate it. So it's hard to find. I mean, that's why people love the new sensations right now, like obsession and back rooms. It's like it's that kind of feeling all over again. Of, I mean, everybody online knew about back rooms ahead of time, but it's like it's something like your parents wouldn't understand.
Right. Yeah.
A marketing executive wouldn't understand why this is a hit. Disney doesn't understand why it's a hit. Disney's just like, well, we've got Toy Story and we've got Boba Fett, and
Right.
whereas
Many
and
versions.
nobody's buying these seats. Now I feel like there is that kids are always going to be looking for that secret thing
They'll find
that
it. It's
their
on
parents,
YouTube. Yeah.
yeah, their parents don't know about it, or it's not. It's something that they figured out, whether they found it on Roblox or they found it on CapCut or TikTok or whatever it is. They still are going after that. I want to call this mine. I don't want to be fed something. I want to find something, you know? And I think that's the big lesson I think Hollywood is learning right now. It's like, you can't give us Mandalorian and Grogu. We're too smart for that. We need to have something that costs less than $1 million, made by a kid, and we will pack the theater. We'll be on our phones. We'll talk the whole time. We don't really know how to go to the movie,
Right.
but I mean, it's still the same thing where it's their personal secret little discovery that they're all sharing together. Thankfully, both my screenings for Obsession and Backrooms were completely silent. Everybody was like holding their breath, and we're
Oh, very good.
riveted. I'm gonna go see Masters of the Universe tonight and in IMAX. It's a sold out
nice.
show. I'm very curious to see what that's going to be like, because it's a big thing. To me, it's interesting because it's made by Travis Knight, who makes all the Leica movies, and which I love. But Clay, you and I have talked many times about growing up in this toy utopia, Toytopia,
Yeah. For sure.
of GI Joe, Transformers, and I was into He-Man as well. You know, I didn't have everything, but my first microphone was the Snake Mountain mic. Um,
Oh, yeah, right.
It all started there.
it really
That's
did. I just
funny.
I
Yeah.
just pulled that off Snake Mountain, clipped it on my little belt, and I was just walking around. Mom, I want macaroni and cheese. You know, which I think is what the kid does in the commercial. You know? But yeah, it's hard to find. You know, we had it so great with
Mm,
80s toy driven cartoons and toys, and then the 90s we had
yeah.
such great hip hop
It was the golden age.
and such great
For
nerdy
sure.
content as well. And then I think, you know, it was really awesome we got to experience that stuff pre-internet. You know,
Yeah.
it's almost like sacred in the way that we didn't know things and the way that we didn't destroy things. I hate to sound like an old man, um
Hey, we're all
but
the
that is
same
kind of
age here, brother.
I
So
know
it's all
we're all
good.
fifty,
that's
right?
kind of the vibe
Yeah.
now where it's just like how do you preserve an experience. So
Yeah.
I don't like tell my fans what the track list is for my album. I don't tell them what the songs are. I want them to like put it on and not know anything because I want them to have that like surprise experience that they
To
couldn't
listen
be
to
and
it from the
once they
beginning to the end.
yeah, I want
Like,
them to
Mm.
listen to the whole thing. And I of course they'll immediately go online and ruin it for somebody else, but because that's our way. That's our nature now. But I like that there are so many people that are going to be able to listen to it pure. I try to go into things pure. That's my favorite way to go into a movie is almost to not even know the plot. Just to like trust the director or trust the writer. And there's a certain point, like I'll watch the first trailer for things, but if I see a second trailer, I'll turn it off immediately because I'm like, you already got me, Star Wars. I'm gonna
yeah.
come I'm gonna come to your movie. I don't want to know anything about it. If you can just not tell me anything, because they're so desperate. Remember, like, I mean, it wasn't long ago where,
Yeah.
yeah, they're probably still doing it, where the trailers tell you the entire story. Um, so a lot of
Yeah.
that surprise
Definitely.
is
They
gone.
definitely do.
Yeah, and I want to maintain that
Yeah.
surprise as best I can, and kind of share that awesome pre-internet experience that we had with younger people.
Okay. I need
Well,
to
I
ask you a
think you're
question
doing it.
about the record, and just like kind of the way things have changed, and you go to NYU and you're recording on an 8-track, and then you're releasing music now, and they just showed up at your house, which is super exciting. Like, you definitely are an independent artist. You control distribution, you control your merch. How is it that you've maintained like such control over all your distribution and things like that? Like, because I always think
Well,
it's
I mean,
great that.
there's no distribution. I mean, I used to do that in the beginning where I would sell my album to a distributor, try to get my music into record stores. But I mean, I don't go into record stores. I mean, I don't my music isn't up at Target or at Hot Topic. So, you know, and like we just talked about, I like that vibe of me kind of opening my trench coat and passing somebody some contraband, you know.
Mhm.
Um I like that vibe of like only printing 500 records and almost handing them off to everybody personally. And being independent, I was always supporting myself through the tours. I mean, like there is a very, traditional way that a musician can exist, and that's you make a record, you tour it, you take the money from the tour, you make another record, rinse, repeat.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until the last record where I asked for help from fans and on a GoFundMe, and they gave me 18K. So that was an amazing boost from them, literally a boost to make my next thing. And I have a feeling I could probably do that forever. I never have to go
Yeah.
to a corporation and say I need money to make an album. And the so many musicians, they want to get signed, they want to get that advance, but they just don't know the reality of it. They don't know
You
that
got to pay it back.
every
That's what an advance is all
every
about.
penny they spend, every bottle of champagne that they drink is accounted for and has to be returned It's alone, and it's so hard to
Yeah.
make money. And also, bands get dropped and then they end. There's so many bands with just like 2 albums. But because I came up in the pop punk world, they were always releasing music. They were always putting out their own stuff. They're running their own merch tables. It was all very DIY. And I'm so blessed that I got to grow up in that scene or come up in that
Yeah.
scene.
Me too.
Because it really taught me that, like, ain't nothing to it but to do it. You don't, and I
Yeah.
just said to a fan who was like, "I'm an artist. Do you have any advice for me?" And I was like, "Don't wait for approval. Just make something, post it, and keep doing it over and over again until you're better or somebody notices." And
Mm.
and thankfully, with all the technology that's come, we might have lost some of that secret private experience we were just talking about. But there's a lot of amazing things that have happened because of the internet. We can self-produce, we can self-release. Um,
Raise
we can make
money.
our own music. We could raise money. We can make our own music videos. There's nothing you can't do.
We raised money for Durson's comic book. We did that on
Yeah, I had
Yeah,
a
was that Kickstarter?
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it was Kickstarter.
I made a cartoon because of Kickstarter. Um,
It's great.
these are. There's nothing stopping a person except for these head games where you're telling yourself, "Why? What makes me so
Your
great?
own
Why
head.
should I be doing this?" And it really is mind over matter. I say it to my kid all the time. I don't know if he understands what that means, but I feel like it's such a little change you have in the way you do things in life. And once you figure it out, you realize you can get through anything if you just, get past those negative thoughts you have in your head about how you're not good and you're not worthy and you suck and there's no reason for you to move forward. Because really, you might suck in the beginning, but you'll never get better if you don't start. And so, but yeah, I think I've been really lucky to been able to put out a small amount of records, and then I've had things like Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube Music and Bandcamp that have helped people gain access to my music. And now I'm just handing people little USB drives that are smaller than a penny that have my entire catalog on them. And
That's so cool.
that is really cool. That's like, it doesn't take up a lot of space in the van. I mean, I'm making vinyl because people like
People love it.
to people like to like do things that are gone. They like especially young people. They love cameras that aren't plugged into anything. They love film cameras and analog technology and um, a lot of people are collectors. A lot of my fans are collectors. And so they love to collect vinyl and collect different things that I make. But yeah, no, I've been really lucky to been able to control it. And because I wasn't on a label and because I didn't get dropped, there's no time limit. There's no end unless people just stop buying or people stop coming to shows. And thankfully, our pre-sales, Clay, are almost what our final head count was last year. So they're still
We're
coming.
doing okay. And while
I think
let's talk about the show for a second. We've got stacked bill. I said, bring me all of your opening acts. Let's do it. We got
yeah.
Swell, Rell, and our mutual friend megaran, who I've also done. I almost think, yeah, I've done as many shows with megaran as I've done with mcchris. And when I get the both of you at the same time, I really consider myself blessed, man. It's really great.
Yeah. Mega ran me to post. He's like, my first tour was in 2011 with MC Chris, and that was 15 years ago. It's crazy to think how
My
much time has passed, and now he's a bona fide master at his art. And thank you for all these shows. Thank you for the next show that we're going to do this summer. I feel so lucky to have. As I was going through, these emails, I sent out so many emails to people these days. I love it when I know the name and I know the
Yeah.
person. I can see the face.
Yeah.
Like I know who I'm talking to. I don't get that all the time, but I get it with you. You and I, every time we see each other, we bond over our love of GI Joe, and that's always been so nice and so appreciated. Really makes me feel like I'm with somebody I can trust and somebody that I appreciate and definitely don't take for granted. I'm very grateful for all your promotion over the years and your ability to do these shows for me. So many of these shows were created and run by people who have no idea, what
it
it's like to
is.
be up.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Very much so in the beginning. I read a a post that I had written a long time ago about somebody who put a bunch of bands that didn't quite match up with my band on the bill, and they just didn't get it. They saw dollar signs, and that was the tricky part at the beginning of my career. There was a lot of people that just saw dollar signs. They weren't really nerds. They might have been, but they didn't know that like they should be, you know, being themselves. They should have just been themselves like you've always been. So I always appreciate you, Clay.
Well, I'm lucky enough to call you a friend, man. Like this has
Oh yeah,
this has
for
been
sure.
awesome, man.
I've
This has
only
been
sent
awesome.
one promoter a H.I.S.S tank.
Yeah, that's right. I got it right behind me, actually. I brought in my
Nice.
G.I. Joe swag back there. I got
I know
and
when
then
you got it, you were like, "Did I buy this in a drunken stupor?"
I was so confused. But then you were like,
That's
"Yeah,
sober. How did I do this?
yeah," and then you were like, "No, you helped me out," because that's funny too, because like you were like, "I need help like setting up tickets for this other show that's not even anywhere
Yeah.
near where I live." And then you're like, yeah, it all came back to me just because we're old. So I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right." You were like, "I said I was gonna send you something," and then it came in the mail, and I was like, "I don't really buy. I don't get." It. But I'm glad we got to the bottom of that mystery. The history, history, I guess. But,
History, yes. Wow.
well, you got to go see He-Man, my brother, and we.
And
I
you have
think we've had,
boxes of albums outside your apartment. You should go and
yeah, you're
take
dying to
before some
open 'em.
fans come. Yeah. That's right.
Well, we very much appreciate you having you on, Chris, and we'll be seeing you on July 9th at the Middle East. And thanks so much, man. Appreciate you coming on.
I've
This
only
has been
sent
awesome.
one promoter a H.I.S.S tank.
No maggots watching his face as he's often in his coffin lying down. Lost his thought, groupies gather at the grave. Octopodes on a pod, hangers hang off in the distance, telescoping with a nod. Smoking basket at the box and get their knickers and knots. They play in the park, in the dark, with his Parker's cliff. Raise it high in the sky and credits it is for Chris. Then the tale of how he really was a pimp. Pants wanted to be on, just wanted to be honest. Yeah. Awake to the days and